Welcome to the Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shayla 𝐘𝐨𝐿. As a double board certified family and obesity medicine physician with over 12 years of experience in medicine, I teach motivated individuals how to achieve their desired quality of life while preventing and reversing chronic diseases. It's tea time. On today's episode of the Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast, I have a special guest, Dr. Dana Gibbs. Dr. Gibbs is a board-certified otolaryngologist, thyroid surgeon, and founder of Consultants in Metabolism, a practice focused on the medical treatment of Hashimoto's disease and other complex thyroid-related illnesses and chronic fatigue. She helps patients who have not responded to levothyroxine or who were not offered treatment due to normal TSH regain their energy and vitality. Welcome to the show, Dr. Gibbs. I'm just ecstatic to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it will be. So we'll just kick this off with you just telling me, even within your practice, what are some of those more common thyroid disorders you encounter? And then what do typically people experience? Like when they come to you, what kind of things are they experiencing in terms of symptoms?
Okay, sure, absolutely. So I would say number one most common thing that I see people for is for Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune condition that attacks your thyroid gland and can cause you to have either too much thyroid hormone or not enough thyroid hormone circulating in your body at any given time. And that fluctuation makes people feel really, really bad. The other thing that I tend to see people for are other benign thyroid conditions. Say they have a thyroid nodule that was caused by they don't know what, or Graves' disease, which is a different autoimmune condition. Or maybe they've had surgery or they've had radiation treatment and then they were given medication afterwards to replace their thyroid hormone and they just don't feel well. So those are super common things that I see people for. The common thread running through it for everybody, and and not everybody has thyroid problems, but all my patients have fatigue and sometimes just crushing, debilitating fatigue. And that tends to be what brings them in and they say, okay, I'm giving up on the standard treatment. I want to try something outside the box. I'm going to go see this person, which is me.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, in family medicine, we do tend to see a lot of the fatigue or even weight gain that folks
That
are,
too.
commonly presenting with. And then it's one of those things where if it's, if the thyroid does turn out to be perfectly normal, then they're like, oh, I was almost wishing, it was my
Right.
thyroid.
And
Yeah.
those are the people that I see, and those are the people that I want to see because, you know, we have this idea in medicine that this one test, the TSH test, is kind of like the buck stops here. And if that's fine, then nothing else can be wrong. And what I've found over the course of years, and it was true for my own health, which is where I started with it, was that it's not always fine when the
Yeah.
TSH is normal.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay. So my personal story was kind of the story of everybody who goes through medical training. I mean, it's grueling, it's intense, it's long, it just goes on and on and on. And when I was making the decision to even go to medical school, I was very hesitant because even starting in about high school, I had started being really tired all the time. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know that anything was wrong with me. I just thought, oh, I'm a teenager. I'm tired all the time.
Right.
But when I got to college and I got to my senior year of college and it's time to make that decision, okay, I'm going to go to med school or I'm not going to go to med school. I'm going to do something else. I at first chose not to because I thought, I've heard how bad it is. I don't think I can do it. I was already that tired. And then,
Put that in your mind.
yeah, I mean, it was in my mind that I can't do this. And then I went out and I got a job in a science lab and I did that for a while. And I was like, okay, I'm bored. I'm really meant to be a doctor. This is, I had this, since I was 10, I wanted to be a surgeon, a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon or something stupid like that. I don't know. Um, but I knew that's what I needed to do all along. And so I was just dragging my feet and going, oh, okay, I'm not going to do it. But then I was like, okay, fine. Going to go to med school. And sure enough, it was, wow, I couldn't have even imagined how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got on
Same.
the wards and I got to where I couldn't stay standing up. I was going to pass out.
Hmm.
I mean, I was having fainting spells on the wards. I would kneel down in the hall outside a patient's room, and take a knee. And the resident was just like, well, you're unprofessional. Rah, rah, rah. I was like, Lute, I'm getting ready to pass out, dude.
Wow.
And I wasn't assertive enough to defend myself.
Right.
I just looked like a lazy
Yeah. And
whatever
in the
in front of all
training
these
culture,
people.
you're not really allowed to be, you're not allowed to be
Oh,
sick. You're not allowed to take time off to,
oh gosh,
kind
no.
of
You're
rest
not
or
allowed
heal
to show
yourself.
weakness. You're not allowed to
No.
show
Mm-mm.
anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to the health clinic and I said, "Hey, I think something's wrong with me. I'm nearly passing out on rounds. What's going on?" And they did some tests and my TSH was fine. And they said, "Here, try these antidepressants." You know, I mean, it's just the thing. That's what happens, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it was like, okay, I'm taking the antidepressants. They didn't really help, but maybe that's just who I am. And I'm just going to have to use more willpower and try harder, and just put up with the fact that I'm exhausted all the time. And I did. And I went on to residency. And thank goodness I did ENT and not general surgery because I probably would have died. um,
Yeah.
I did
Especially,
a
yeah, with
year.
your fatigue still
I
being
did a
there.
year of,
Yeah.
yeah, I did a year of general surgery. And, it came close to killing me. I don't know. But the fatigue just kept getting worse and it kept
Mhm.
getting worse and kept getting worse. And I managed to graduate my residency and get out and come home to my mom in my hometown and get a job here. And, instead of going on to some big fancy academic career, because I was just so tired, I couldn't think of doing anything else.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is by now almost 20 years of being tired, 20 years. And I was at a lecture one day. I was at a continuing ed lecture one day, and I had gone into, I was there to learn allergy. That was kind of my thing. I'm ENT and I'm learning allergy because it
Mhm.
affects your sinuses and all that. And I had heard the lecture before and I was bored. So I wandered into the next room. You know how sometimes they have different sessions going
Right.
on at the same time. And the lecture was about thyroid. And the guy put up this slide with all this list of symptoms. And by the end of it, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, holy cow, I have hypothyroidism. Why didn't anybody ever figure this out?
Mhm.
And of course, they didn't because my TSH was fine.
Yeah. Nobody dug any deeper than that.
Nobody dug
Yeah.
any deeper. Nobody knew to dig any deeper.
Mhm.
Most people still don't know.
Right.
But I went home and I did what that guy said, and I tried the medicine regimen that he said, and it was like this miracle. All of a sudden, I have energy. All of a sudden, I'm not freezing all the time. All of a sudden, my hair started to grow back. My eyebrows started to grow back. I was like, what is this? Is this what normal people are like? Really? Wow. You know, and, when I first started on it, I didn't care why it worked. I didn't care that it made my labs look messed up. All I cared about was that I felt better.
Yeah.
All I cared about.
Yeah.
But then after I'd been feeling better for a while and I started noticing that same list of symptoms in my patients, I was like, okay, I can experiment on me, but I can't experiment on my patients. I have to
Right.
know what's going on. Why does this work? What's a better way to deal with it? And so I started looking and eventually found the information that I was looking for. And it's not mainstream,
Mhm.
um, but it is super helpful. And patient after patient would come into me and they'd be like, yeah, I've got all these sinus disease, but I'm also cold and tired and sick, and I've had 4 miscarriages and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let me see if I can help you.
Yeah.
and I would do what I had learned, which we can talk about.
Right. Yeah.
And people would get better and they would come back and they were like, "Doc, I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a baby," and I'm,
Yeah. And
wow.
so even just to piggyback off of that, what would you say are some of those most overlooked symptoms of thyroid dysfunction? You mentioned with like the fertility issues, but what are
Mm.
those other ones, would you say?
Right. So yeah, first is irregular periods and then infertility, repeated miscarriages. Um, that's a biggie.
Mhm.
But there are other symptoms. There are, like, for example, constipation. I
Mm,
have I have this is not my patient. She's a friend of mine who had constipation that was so bad, didn't respond to any other kinds of treatment, never had an abnormal TSH test. And I mean, this lady went to the Mayo Clinic. She went to all
right.
kinds of places. And then she got pregnant and her GYN gave her thyroid medicine. And all of a sudden her constipation was boom, it was gone. And was like, what? I mean, she had colon surgery
Oh my goodness.
because of this. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And it was just unrecognized. And people think, oh, constipation, it's a little uncomfortable. Well, not for her, it wasn't.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was
Clearly it
it
was
was
more. Yeah.
it was a life destroying thing for her. And the surgery that she had that turned out not actually probably to be necessary is something she cannot undo. It's
Right.
never. So that's another one. And then there are some weird immunological things, like people who are sick all the time, who get virus after virus after virus, sinus infection after sinus infection. Those people, it's, and I saw them all the time because I was ENT, I was doing
Mhm.
allergy, I was doing sinus surgery. They would come in and they'd be like, oh, you know what? It's 6 months until I can take time off to have my sinus surgery. And I'd say, well, hey, you have these symptoms. Let's try thyroid treatment for you. And 6 months later, they'd be back, and I'd be like, oh, okay, we ready to schedule your surgery? And they'd be like, oh, no, I don't need that. I'm fine. I just need more of that thyroid medicine. I was like, boom,
Right.
what is going on here? This is something real.
Yeah.
So that's another big one, just the immune issues that go with it. People don't think about that.
Yeah.
They
And that
think about
makes
the
sense.
fatigue.
We do know that thyroid is an autoimmune condition. And so,
Right.
that does make sense too, that you would have other immunological things going along with that.
Sure. Then another that goes kind of along those lines are some weird immune things like vertigo
Mm,
and chronic urticaria, like hives that come and go and come and go
right.
for no apparent reason. Dry, itchy skin, hair loss. I talk to a lot of dermatologists and I'm like, look, I can help your patients who are losing their hair. And, you know, it's not an instantaneous thing, but it's pretty remarkable when people are like, "Doc, I have all these little fuzzy hairs growing." I'm like, I know. It's really, it's really it's kind of gratifying. I like it.
Right.
But
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
but yeah,
sure.
so
Yeah.
many different symptoms.
If you're frustrated with your weight, taking more medications than you'd like to, have been told that you are at risk for the development of a chronic preventable disease, or just are not feeling in the best of health, then I'm talking to you. Why? Because you're tired of fat dieting. You know it's time for a change, and you want a sustainable plan to improve your health. If you have found yourself at this place in life, well, I have developed a program that's just for you. It's called The Essence of Health, and it's your prescription for transformation. My goal with this program is to give you the tools needed to create sustainable lifestyle changes within a group coaching setting, along with one-to-one individualized coaching to give you a personalized path to health that's just for you. The benefits are priceless, so join today. Head on over to 𝐓𝐴𝐻coaching.com to learn more. The essence of health is in you. And so you mentioned that a lot of times we tend to just hone in on the TSH and, don't look any further. So
Mm.
what types of things should be looked at beyond that TSH?
Sure. So I always, I mean, the patients that come to me have self-selected for,
Yeah.
people who, if your TSH was abnormal and you got thyroid medicine and you feel great, they don't come see me.
Mhm.
They've self-selected themselves.
Right.
The patients I see are the subset, and I think it's probably as many as 20% of people who either already have um, hypothyroidism and they're taking their medicine and it's not working for them, or they never got the diagnosis in the first place because their TSH was fine. And what I tend to look at is, first of all, the free hormone levels. We're real reluctant to spend any money on people that's quote unquote unnecessary.
Oh my God. I
But
feel like that's a whole nother episode. I
that's a
have to bring
whole
you back to
nother,
talk about our healthcare costs.
that's a whole nother podcast episode.
Yeah.
But because lab expense is really quite, I don't want to use the word a scam, but there's so much wrong with the way we're charged for labs, because when I order a complete set of thyroid tests on somebody and they pay me for it and then I pay the lab, I pay $55 for that full
I can
complete
believe it.
set.
Yep. Same in
You
my
know,
office. Right. But if they go to try to do that, or if they even use
it might
insurance,
be
it may be, yeah,
$600.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Several hundreds of dollars.
$600 was what one of my patients got charged when we accidentally thought she had insurance when she didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big thing. But anyway, so the tests that I order are the free T3 and the free T4, so the free hormone levels. I
Mhm.
also order the TSH just because I want to know where it's at.
Right.
And then I order total T3 and reverse T3. So there's 5 tests that I order. And then if I've never seen a patient before and they're not sure whether they have an autoimmune disease or not, I will look for autoimmune thyroid disease in people who have that list of symptoms
Right.
that, the weight gain, the fatigue, the hair loss, the dry skin, all the things. I will order the thyroid globulin, the thyroid peroxidase. And then if they have low TSH, indicating that they have overactive thyroid function, I will also order the antibody set that's for Graves' disease, which is the thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin and the thyroid receptor antibody. So those are 2 more that I will order. If I've never seen a patient before and I don't know why they have thyroid symptoms, I will generally also order an iodine level just to see, because Hashimoto's is probably 90% of hypothyroidism in the US where I practice. But iodine deficiency is really common too.
Right.
And especially in the middle west of the United States, iodine deficiency is extremely common. And it's actually the reason why iodized salt was invented, is so that people wouldn't get goiters and thyroid disease.
Right. Right.
Which is on a resurgence, by the way, because people don't eat iodized salt anymore for some
Exactly.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah. We've gotten too fancy.
Yes, we have. Well, I mean, I don't think sea salt is good for you. I mean, bad for you. I think sea salt is good for you, but then you have
Yeah.
to realize
But then,
it doesn't have any iodine in it, and
right.
you need to
Exactly. It's
add some
that
iodine.
trade-off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, those are my 5 labs.
Yeah.
And the reason I focus on the total T3 and the reverse T3 is this. And it's a little bit high level, but it's super important to understand this, because reverse T3 and T3 are like yin and yang. They're a twin pair. And T3 is the active thyroid hormone that is made in your body cells in order to activate your cells. Reverse T3 is something your body makes when it senses that you need to slow down, when it senses that you might have too much thyroid hormone going on, when it senses that you might be starving, for example, when your stress levels are extremely high, or if you have Hashimoto's disease for some reason, that turns on the making of a lot of reverse T3. And reverse T3, if you find it in the literature, most of what it says in the literature is that it's an inactive metabolite, but it isn't. It is equally as capable of binding to the thyroid receptors in your cells, and it will block them. And so if you have a lot of it, even if you have enough T3 in your body, you will not get the action of it because of the blocking effect of this high reverse T3. And so I measure reverse T3, and then I compare it with total T3, because then that gives me a balance and I know where that ratio is. And the ratio needs to be about 12-1. It needs to be 12 T3 to 1 reverse T3 molecule for molecule in your blood. And if it's at that level, then you probably have an adequate balance and an adequate amount of thyroid hormone in your body. Now, if you have that, but your TSH is also above 4, then that's also not a good thing. But if everything else is somewhere within the normal range, and then that ratio is in the normal, in that 12-1 ratio, then I can honestly say, okay, I have your thyroid balanced correctly. And if you're still having XYZ symptoms, then we need to look for other causes.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for
So that's,
explaining that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's complicated. And sometimes you have to hear it 2 or 3 times. And then you're like, okay, I'm starting to get it now.
Yeah. No, I think you explained it well. Yeah. I have heard some other explanations that yeah, didn't flow.
Okay.
For lack of
All
a
right.
better word.
All right. Yeah, I tried to,
Yeah.
I try to make it to where it's as easily understandable as possible, but
Yeah, yeah. And
it's
so, with that in mind, tell us how that then relates clinically to, some of these symptoms folks are seeing and in terms of metabolism and those things.
sure. Yeah. So thyroid hormone activates your metabolism. Thyroid hormone, um, as it's produced in your thyroid gland, is 90% T4, which is the prohormone, or thyroxine, or levothyroxine. If you take medicine, it's coming in as this pre-hormone, basically. It's not active yet. It has to go out into your body, and 80% of what your cells use is produced right there at the level of the cells. And it goes into the cell, it goes to the nucleus, and it activates your genes to start producing proteins or energy or heat or um, growing your eyebrows, for example. Um, that's one of the things when people's thyroid balance isn't off, that very, very frequently you'll see that they've lost the corners off of their eyebrows. And I always ask ladies, did you pluck your eyebrows? And they're like, no, 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 they just fell out. And I'm like, okay, I know what's wrong with you. But your GI tract will do its peristalsis, its contractions, more efficiently. Your body heat will be generated more efficiently. Your fat burning is generated more efficiently. Your energy use. So I think about it like a car. So the food that you eat is like the gas that you put in the tank of the car.
Mhm.
But if you don't have the proper balance of thyroid hormone, it's like there's no spark coming from the spark plugs. You can't burn the energy properly. And your body's just like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Let's just pack it on as fat. We
Right.
don't need this right now. Um, so, so yeah, it really, it's responsible for growth. It's responsible for healing. It's responsible for optimizing all kinds of other hormonal functions in your body, like whether or not you're insulin resistant or not,
Yeah.
whether or not you have adequate amounts of sex hormones circulating around, whether your adrenal function is working properly, whether you have brain function that's working properly. As a matter of fact, we talked about symptoms, and one of them that I should have mentioned is ADHD or brain fog, or
Right.
just this scattered executive function, this scattered way of thinking that you can't quite get if you don't have enough thyroid hormones. So that energy production is in your brain as well as in your body.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like to think of the thyroid gland. Really, it's like one of our mastermind glands. It does just
Mhm.
so much for our bodies. And so it is. It's just so important because it has so many functions. So thank you for touching on those. Stay tuned to next week's episode of the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast, where there will be more of the tea on your thyroid, testing, toxins, and truth with Dr. Dana Gibbs. See you then. Thank you for joining me today on the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Click the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a moment of the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Check out the show notes to obtain your free tips for healthy living guide to get you started on your health and wellness path. Follow me on social media at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and at dr.tw@𝐓𝐸HWC on TikTok. Interested in becoming a member of the Essence of Health coaching program? Well, head on over to www.𝐓𝐸HCoaching.com. The essence of health is in you.